Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're getting into something really fundamental, haven't we? Gain and loss.
Yeah, it touches everything.
And we're not just, scratching the surface. We're looking closely at a conversation between Tashi Miniam and Thuy Min. It was on Vietsetter's YouTube channel.
Right. And that title, Aguk Kong Han Dik Mak Hung Han Mut.
Which translates roughly to gain isn't necessarily gain, loss isn't necessarily loss.
Yeah.
It really sets the stage, doesn't it?
It definitely does. Makes you question the basics.
So our big question for this deep dive is really, what actually shapes how we perceive what we gain and what we lose?
It's fascinating because it immediately challenges how we usually think about it, you know?
Totally.
Like gain is getting something, loss is losing it. Simple, black and white.
But this conversation suggests, well, maybe it's not quite so clear-cut.
Mm-hmm.
They introduce this really crucial idea, tunhung,
Ah, yes.
which, it translates roughly as enjoying something or maybe engaging with it.
Right, engaging. I think that's key.
But it feels like it goes deeper than just passively receiving it.
Yeah, definitely. It's not just handed to you. It's more active than that.
Like, think about a sunny day. We'd say that's a gain, wouldn't we? Good weather.
Sure. On the surface, yeah.
But then, is it really a gain if you spend the whole day inside, glued to your work or phone?
Good question. Probably not, in the way they mean it.
It seems like to really feel the gain, you have to actively participate in it somehow.
Get involved. Experience it. Be present for it.
Yeah, that active reception is key.
And that applies to so many things. Think about having children.
Oh, absolutely. A huge gain.
Undeniably, but the real depth of that gain, the conversation suggests, comes from actively being present with them, experiencing those moments, that connection. They call it a miraculous reality. It's not just, providing food and shelter.
Right. It's the engagement.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how many potential gains just sort of slip past us.
Because we're not tuned in?
Exactly. The world's offering things, experiences, but maybe we're focused elsewhere. Technology, work.
So the opportunity might be there, but we're not receiving the signal, so to speak.
So that's a huge first insight, isn't it? Gain isn't just acquisition. It's about active, conscious experience.
Right. A potential gain only becomes real when you engage with it.
Okay. So if active engagement is key for gain, what about loss? Where does that fit in?
Well, that's where the lines start to get really blurry, which is fascinating.
Yeah, this part was a bit of a mind bender for me. The idea of enjoying loss.
Sounds counterintuitive, right?
Very. But think about it. Maybe you choose to skip, a non-essential work meeting to spend the afternoon with your child.
Okay.
On paper, you've lost that meeting, that networking chance maybe.
A loss.
But the connection, the joy you get from that time with your kid, that can feel like a much bigger gain, can it?
Absolutely. It reframes the whole value equation.
It really does.
And it points towards the impermanence of everything. Nothing stays the same.
True.
Take the example they use of a child growing up. As a parent, you inevitably lose some control, right? As they get more independent.
Yeah, that's a classic feeling, I think.
But what do you gain? You gain seeing them become this capable person ready for the world.
Right.
So the loss of control is actually directly linked to the gain of their growth.
It's like there's always a hidden exchange happening. What looks like a loss here might be enabling a gain over there.
Exactly. Parents whose kids leave home might feel that loss keenly, but they also gain a new phase of life, maybe a different kind of relationship with their adult child, maybe freedom for other things.
It's about seeing value in different forms as things change, not just sticking to one definition.
Which leads into how we handle discontent, that feeling that comes when we feel we've lost something or haven't gained what we wanted.
Ah, yes, the tantrum analogy. I like that.
Me too. A child's tantrum is intense, but it's temporary, like changing channels on a TV.
Right. It passes. The unpleasantness isn't forever.
So it encourages a bit of patience, doesn't it? When we're in a situation we don't like, it's probably not permanent.
So you got to write it out sometimes.
But it's not just about passively waiting. There seems to be a real benefit in actively confronting things we see as loss or difficulty.
Like the surfer.
Exactly like the surfer analogy. Facing that huge wave must feel like a total loss of control at first. Scary. Overwhelming.
I can imagine.
But by learning to ride those waves, they gain incredible skill, confidence. a whole new relationship with the ocean.
So facing the loss, the difficulty, actually builds something new.
It elevates you. It suggests that these tough experiences aren't just negative. They can be catalysts for growth, for a deeper understanding.
Okay, so reframing loss as a potential teacher almost.
In a way, yeah. Now, connecting this to modern life, the conversation brings up something really relevant about, the internet and screens.
Oh, yes. The constant stimulation issue.
Right. We're just bombarded with short, snappy videos, instant updates, quick dopamine hits all the time.
And that can sort of mess with our tolerance for real life, which is often slower.
That's the idea. It can lower our threshold for what feels engaging or pleasurable. Real-world stuff might seem boring by comparison.
And there's a brain chemistry aspect too, isn't there?
Yeah, potentially. Over-relying on that external buzz might hinder our brain's own ability to produce those feel-good chemicals naturally.
Leading to dependency.
Maybe. And stronger negative reactions when those external sources aren't there or aren't hitting the spot, like withdrawal almost.
Wow, that really explains why patience can feel so hard sometimes.
Doesn't it? We get used to instant everything online.
So then waiting for something or focusing on a longer conversation or even music that builds slowly, it can feel like a struggle, like a loss of that constant stimulation fix.
Yeah, short attention spans become the norm.
Okay, so given that modern life might be making it harder to cope with perceived loss or just, normal life, what can we actually do? How do we build that resilience?
Well, the conversation moves towards practical steps. One idea is to actively choose experiences that aren't immediately gratifying.
Lean into the discomfort a bit.
Kind of, like deliberately picking tasks that need sustained focus, even if they're not fun right away. Stepping out of the comfort zone?
It's like training a muscle, isn't it? Retraining your brain to find satisfaction in the effort, not just the quick reward.
Exactly. And this ties into why we react so strongly sometimes. If we're too used to things going our way, too much success or ease.
Then any little setback feels huge.
Precisely. Tiki Minium's reflection on judging people he thought were less capable. That's a really honest example.
Realizing his own bias.
And realizing that, confronting that, challenging himself, led to growth. It's about facing our own weaknesses, being willing to learn from anyone.
So him deliberately doing tasks he wasn't good at, that was intentional.
Seems so.
Right.
Like intentionally putting himself in a position of loss of competence, maybe to gain humility, perspective, new skills.
It really underlines that difficulty is often necessary for real growth. Like they say, living long enough tends to adjust your expectations anyway.
True. You learn things don't always go smoothly, and the Buddhist perspective they bring in about desire fits here too.
The stronger the desire.
The bigger the potential crash if you don't get it or if you lose it. Think about really wanting that shiny new thing.
Right. The wanting itself sets you up for potential pain. Attachment.
So the intensity of our craving for a gain is linked to how badly we react if it doesn't happen. Managing expectations becomes key.
And not just managing expectations, but actually experiencing the tough emotions, not suppressing them.
Yeah, that's important too.
Yeah.
Letting yourself feel the frustration, the anger, whatever it is, rather than immediately pushing it away.
So you can process it, understand it better.
Exactly. Builds that emotional muscle, that resilience over time.
Which leads nicely into the whole idea of emotional intelligence, or EQ.
Mm-hmm. How our understanding, our awareness, shapes how we react emotionally.
So if you have a deeper understanding of something complex, like, say, true love in a relationship,
Your emotional responses become different, more nuanced, less reactive maybe.
because it's not just about that first rush of feeling anymore. It's based on something deeper.
Right. But that deep understanding doesn't just come from reading about it.
No, it has to be lived.
Right.
Experience and realization.
That's what the anecdote from The Pace of Things illustrates so well. The talented student.
Yeah, he could name all the ingredients.
Technically perfect. But he lacked the experience to truly appreciate the flavors, the harmony.
Needs time, needs practice, needs living it.
Absolutely, for that deeper insight to develop.
So it really feels like we're circling back to the power of our own perspective.
It seems absolutely central, doesn't it? Our internal attitude, how we frame things. It seems more critical than the external event itself, whether it's a gain or a loss.
I love the analogy they used of riding a wild beast.
Yeah, that was powerful.
Success or gain is a wild beast. Failure or loss is also a wild beast.
And you can't avoid them. They'll both show up.
So the key isn't avoidance. It's learning to ride the beast, learning to manage it, control your reaction to it.
So it doesn't control you. So your inner peace isn't totally dependent on whether you're riding the success beast or the failure beast right now.
That takes self-awareness, inner control.
Definitely. And look at the examples they gave. Lottery winners.
Often end up worse off, bizarrely. That big external gain.
Without the inner development to handle it, can be destructive. Compare that to prisoners who use that time, that loss of freedom, for reflection and growth.
It's such a stark contrast. It shows how gain without inner work can actually be harmful.
Or think about entrepreneurs, the ones who have easy success right away versus those who struggle and fail early on.
The ones who struggle often seem better equipped long-term, don't they?
Because they've learned resilience. They've gained skills and understanding through those perceived losses. It's like inheriting wealth versus building it.
Ah, good comparison. Inherited wealth is just the money. Building it includes the know-how, the grit.
Exactly. True wealth includes the journey. And maybe it's the same with love. A deep capacity to love isn't usually just handed to you.
No, it grows through experience, through challenges, through understanding built over time. Not just a sudden gain.
Which brings us to the importance of that inner work, developing that capacity.
Right. And they mention the connection between physical training and mental resilience, using Hunyang's experience.
Yeah, that discipline you build pushing through physical challenges.
It strengthens your mind, too. Gives you that inner fortitude.
Absolutely. It proves to yourself you can handle discomfort, you can persevere. That translates.
And the brain can actually be retrained, right? We're not stuck just seeking easy dopamine.
No. We can learn to find satisfaction in overcoming challenges. It shifts that default setting.
Mind and body really are connected. Any kind of discipline training seems to help build that mental strength.
And always remember impermanence. It's not a negative thing here. It means change is always possible.
We're not stuck. Past limitations don't have to dictate the future. We can grow.
And as our emotional intelligence grows, we get better at seeing what's really a gain, not just superficial stuff.
Like in relationships, maybe the real gain is that comfortable, steady connection, not constant drama or big gestures.
Yeah, discerning true value, which leads to thinking about our fears.
Thuimin, talking about her fear of being alone, that was quite open. Makes you reflect on your own.
And they introduced Kaimin, enlightenment or liberation, as gaining awareness of things you didn't know before.
And that deeper awareness helps confront those basic human fears, right? Fears that drive how we see gain and loss.
Like not just knowing something intellectually, but a deep experiential shift in understanding, especially regarding fear.
We all have those core fears, don't we? Losing people we love, losing stuff, losing status.
Yeah. But the conversation hints that maybe the deepest fear is losing our very selves.
Our ability to think, to feel, to experience life.
Exactly. Our cognitive abilities, our emotional capacity, when you think about people who have lost that.
It puts our everyday ups and downs into perspective, doesn't it? That normal state of being able to experience.
It's huge. It connects to that Zen idea. Ordinary mind is the way. A state beyond clinging to gain and fearing loss. Just being present.
And Einstein's quote fits perfectly there.
Everything is a miracle, or nothing is.
It's our choice, how we see it, how we value it, our internal frame.
So ultimately, the inner transformation changes everything. How we experience the external world, the gains, the losses, it all shifts.
When you're more grounded inside, the outside world has less power to knock you off balance.
Yeah. So the core message is really our inner state is the deciding factor.
And having that soul, that capacity for experience and connection, that's the foundation.
And Thich Nhat Hanh's quote is so hopeful. While there is still life, everything can change.
Transformation is always possible.
The conversation summed up those levels of inner work. Fighting yourself, holding on to good values, living authentically, always expanding your understanding.
And when your inner world aligns better with what you seek outside, life just feels more fulfilling, less reactive.
Like that business proverb. As long as you're breathing, you're still alive. As long as you're breathing, you can still recover.
That resilience is always there. Wow. Okay, that was a lot to unpack, a really rich discussion.
It really was. We went deep into what gain and loss truly mean, beyond just the surface.
And that initial point holds true, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We often have so much more than we realize. We just forget.
We lose sight of it, which is why that exercise we mentioned before can be so useful.
Right, actually listing what you have. A real perspective shifter.
So building on that, for this deep dive, maybe a couple of new reflections for you listening.
Good idea. First, maybe think about your current gains. Are you really present with them? Are they still bringing you real joy, real meaning?
And the gains you're chasing, are they genuinely yours? Or are they maybe just expectations or keeping up with others? Are they still relevant to who you are now?
And then flip it. Look at your perceived losses. Are they definitely, absolutely losses? Or could there be a hidden opportunity there, something needing to be let go of for new growth?
Maybe some losses just need a different kind of attention, a different investment to come back in a new way.
And maybe consider
Hmm.
actually experiencing those losses sometimes, instead of just avoiding the feeling.
Have you really ridden the wild beast of a tough experience, learned from it, or are you maybe ready to face one you've been avoiding?
Because, as we've explored, it really does all come down to that inner state.
Everything depends on it.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into gain and loss. This was the third in our series looking at these big life themes.
And next time, we'll be exploring what will be lost.
We want to extend our huge thanks to Tessie Mindiam for his wisdom and to the Viet Cetera team for the original conversation.
And thank you, as always, for listening and engaging with us. Until the next deep dive.